And now, more with Social Women, with your hosts, Pat Cruz, Amy Diaz, and Bronwyn Dannenfelser.
We are here with WJAR's Barbara Morse-Silva and Melissa Pacheco, American Heart Association advocate and Boston Go Red spokeswoman. Welcome, ladies.
We're both lovely in red today.
We are wearing red. We're representing.
Yay!
So, Go Red.
Well, you know, we were just talking about Friday was the Go Red luncheon, right?
It was amazing. We had more than 600, mostly women.
Wow.
There were a few men sprinkled in there. They loved it, by the way. Who wouldn't? And Joy Bauer was the keynote speaker, and she was absolutely amazing. She's the nutrition guru, I call her, on the Today Show. And just a very riveting, speech talking about, nutrition and the need to get out there and do your heart good by doing a little exercise.
And we all need it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't matter how thin you are. People say, oh, I'm thin. I don't need to exercise.
No.
Oh, yes, you do. Your heart needs it.
It's not about thin.
Nope, it's not.
About thin, thick, whatever. It's not.
You can
It
be
is about
thick
being
and healthy. Yes, you can be thick and healthy.
And you can be thin and unhealthy.
Exactly. And we've seen that.
Which
Yes.
is very scary because that's when you're thin, you think that you're totally healthy and you never go for checkups and your mind isn't thinking, oh, I should probably go because my health, just because my weight may say one number, my health and other tests may have a completely different number. I've experienced it and that's not fun.
Yeah, people tend to think about it when they're overweight. Okay, I need to
Yeah.
lose weight and become more healthy. That's not the case. Everyone needs to eat healthy, and it's a lifestyle. And Melissa can talk a little bit more about that because she is a big loser, and I mean that in the kindest way. But it's about lifestyle changes, permanent lifestyle changes that you can live with. Right?
Right, absolutely.
And probably Melissa can tell us her story because she got involved with the American Heart. I feel like I'm doing the interview. I'm sorry to just take over.
No, go for it. That's great.
But she got involved with the American Heart Association because of, her first child. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. 10 years ago, actually, and it would be 10 years ago this month, I reached out to the American Heart Association after my daughter was born with a congenital heart defect. And she was born in January of 2002. She had surgery at 3 days old and an unexpected setback, which was a blood clot, and she passed away at 12 days old. I remember leaving the hospital and thinking, why is it, for one, that I had a child with a heart defect? Because I just hadn't heard of it. I didn't realize how common it actually is. 1 out of 100 children are born with a heart defect. And then also seeing those children in the hospital and the parents, it was a life-changing experience. So after reaching out to the American Heart Association, becoming involved in different activities to raise awareness, to bring support to those families, I went on to have a second child in 2005, and Julia was also born with a heart defect, which isn't common. Typically, you don't find more than one child with a heart defect, but she did have one, and it was very similar, but she didn't need surgery. She needed a catheterization at 4 days old, and then she's doing very well. She's 6. I continued to be involved in the American Heart Association, and then in 2007 at an event, I was talking to women, talking about how important it is to be healthy, to take care of your heart, because it's the only one that you have. And I had the experience of having 2 children who had hearts that weren't perfect, and how could we, who are born with a perfect heart, not take care of it? It's almost a responsibility. It's not even an option. And then I went home and looked in the mirror and said, hey, what about me? I'm so busy trying to bring awareness to this that I'm not taking care of myself. So I decided to do that. And
you were talking about the fact you were 50 pounds overweight?
Yeah, I was about
50 pounds overweight.
I was about 170 and about a size 16. And then it took about a year. I went down to about a size 6, lost about 50 pounds, and then now it's 2012, which is about 4 years later, and I've kept off the weight. I'm about a size 4, and being active is just a part of who I am. I go to the gym, almost every day.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. We eat healthy, and my daughter, I needed to make a change because I was talking to women about heart disease, but I also needed a change because my daughter looks to me, and if I'm not healthy, if I'm not active, how can I tell her she needs to be active? Because like any other working muscle, your heart is a muscle, and you need to make sure that you're continuing to use it by staying active. So my daughter sees it, and now she's in activities. She eats right, fruits and vegetables, and we make the right decisions as a family. My husband lost weight as well, so it's been a journey, and
You know, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but and I'm looking at this right now, more women die of heart disease than all forms of cancer combined. And I'm sure there's probably some symptoms that, or are there symptoms that we can look to, or how do we know if
There
we're
are.
at risk?
First of all, let me tell you this. If you ask a woman what her number one fear is, it's not going to be heart disease.
Right.
It's going to be breast cancer.
Yes.
It's going to be breast cancer. Heart disease is our number one killer by far. And the sad thing is our women, hear us roar. We're too busy taking care of everyone around us to pay attention to our own symptoms. They're not always typical, and I'm glad you brought up the symptoms. You know, we don't always have that crushing chest pain. We might have back pain, jaw pain, start sweating profusely, be short of breath. There are so many different symptoms we might have that we dismiss as, well, I'm stressed. I overdid it at the gym. That's why my back hurts, because it'll feel like a muscle pain. So, but these are symptoms we can't ignore. People have literally dropped dead. Women taking care of their family, getting everything done because they ignored these symptoms. Those are a 911 call.
I wonder if there's like an acronym for that. These are the things that you should look out, be aware of. So it's profuse sweating. It is that back pain, lower back pain, upper back pain.
It could be the upper back. It's usually like in the upper back. It could be lower back pain. But it's the women I've talked to. I'm not a doctor, but it's the upper back pain, the jaw pain that we might.
I've never heard of that.
Jaw pain.
Jaw pain.
Really?
Jaw pain. Here's the thing. We know our bodies. So, and we know when something isn't right. Am I right? Mm-hmm. We know when something isn't right.
Yes.
We're intuitive people if we really tap into that intuitiveness. So when something doesn't feel right, that's when you get it checked. So yeah, sweating profusely, shortness of breath. You're like going, but you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just stressed, I have anxiety. I mean, we dismiss so many of these symptoms.
Meanwhile, if it were our child,
they'd be in the emergency room in a heartbeat, so to
Yeah.
speak. But yeah, it's very interesting how we ignore it. The Go Red campaign has been around, I want to say, since 2005, 2004, somewhere in there. And the idea was to educate women, yet still the numbers are low as far as women realizing this is their number one killer. They just haven't embraced it. More and more they're embracing it, and that's good. That's why we continue this campaign. There's a great, have you seen it, Melissa? There's a great spot that, is it Elizabeth Banks? Is that her name, the comedian?
Yes.
It is absolutely hilarious, yet it's eye-opening. It's on the American Heart Association website. Mm-hmm. It's also on YouTube. But she's basically getting ready with her family, having all of these symptoms that I was just talking about, sweating, whoo, it's okay. And she, let me, get the sandwiches ready. And meantime, she collapses on the floor, and her son says, I think you're having a heart attack. She goes, oh, no, honey, I'm not having a heart attack. And then she looks up the symptoms, and she's like, she calls 911, and she goes, I think I'm having a little bit of a heart attack.
A little bit of a heart attack.
Not wanting to bother anyone.
Right. I'm sorry to bother you, but I think.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Well, at what age should a woman start thinking about the risks of heart disease?
From birth on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can probably attest to that.
From birth on.
I think one of the sayings I've heard is, if you're in shape, you don't have to get in shape. So if you're healthy, you don't have to get healthy. If you start taking care of yourself from the get-go, you don't have to play catch-up. Mm-hmm. And when you're lying in bed with serious illnesses or with heart disease, suffering from a heart attack or a stroke, it's never too late. You can still do something about it, but you want to do something before you get to that point.
So start now. Start
Yes.
right now if you haven't.
And not everyone who's born with a congenital heart disease is diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure many just go on and
you
on.
have seen. How many stories have we heard of kids just dropping dead?
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about risk factors, and that's what, Barbara, you were saying that's really important.
We need to know our risk factors. Amy was asking, what kind of test can I take? I mean, as soon as you hear this, it's like, oh, I want to make sure I, am healthy. But you need to know your risk factors. Is there a history of heart disease in your family? That's a risk factor right there. Probably most people don't have that risk factor, but the other risk factors, obesity, being overweight, having high cholesterol, high blood pressure, those are risk factors.
And you know what? While in college, actually, I was one that, and still till this day, I donate blood every 8 weeks. So I when in college, the big donation bus was always on campus every 8 weeks, and I always donated blood. And luckily in Florida, I went to school down in Florida. When you donate blood, you get your hey, you're fine type thing, and it actually gives you your cholesterol number, which they don't do here in Rhode Island, which I found kind of strange because I thought that would be helpful for people to know. And
I wonder why they don't do it here.
I asked, and they said I actually did ask the second time that I went back to the Rhode Island Blood Center, and they said that they don't want to have people to encourage people to go just to get that number. But at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, you're donating blood, so isn't that what the point of it is? Like, but anyway, so getting back to my story, I found that while in college, my last year of undergrad, my cholesterol level was 256.
Ooh.
I was 19 years old, 256, and I must have been like 120 pounds of that.
Right. It
and
doesn't matter how
it
much you
does
weigh.
not matter at all whatsoever. No history of heart conditions in my family at all whatsoever. It was about the food that I was being served, and not to talk about any college's dining food.
It's a choice.
It is no. But at the end of the day, I was always a healthy eater. I had the turkey, and I was always at the deli, unless you found me eating pizza. But it was what we were being served, and what it is that when we go to the grocery store, we pick out. Yes, you can say I'm going to be healthy and grab the turkey, but if you turn that package around and you look at the sodium content in it,
it's processed.
It's processed, and when you're constantly eating processed foods, it's going to have an effect on your body. And that's technically what it came down to. I stopped eating it. I actually formed, with the help of administrators in the institution, a dining hall committee. Food was changed, and my obviously cholesterol level is fine now, but it was shocking to me to think, 19 years old, 120 pounds, I'm this big, and my cholesterol level was 256.
And it's not enough to know your total cholesterol, and you probably know this. We've all gone to the doctor. You need to know your LDL and your HDL.
Exactly.
You want your HDL to be a high number, and you want your LDL, so you could go H and L, to be a low number.
Yes.
You need to break it down. You need to know your triglycerides. You need to, it's know your numbers time. When you go to the doctor, they break that down for you. You need to know what your total cholesterol is and what your, HDL, LDL, triglycerides. You need to know all of those numbers.
But at the end of the day, anything over 200 is
not good.
Risky. It's not good. Not good at all. That was the point of the story. 256 for me was just kind of alarming. I called my mom crying. I'm like, I don't know, I'm going to die of a heart attack like tomorrow. And
well, thank God you did.
Thank God I did it. And I actually just asked, I've had this back pain for a while now. I'm okay, right? So.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I mean, if you've had it for, and Melissa was even talking about this during the break, if there's something wrong with you that doesn't feel right, it's always good to visit a doctor. I mean, we could all say it's a muscle strain, but what if it's not?
Okay.
Not to alarm anyone, but we've all known people who've had symptoms and they've ignored it and to a not good, outcome. Mm-hmm. And probably, Melissa, when you lost 50 pounds, did you notice numbers improving, or did you keep track of those numbers?
Unfortunately, I didn't. But I've had the numbers checked, and my numbers are very good. So,
how does, as women, I just thought of this. We talked a little bit about stress earlier. That we just think, it's just because we're stressed out. That's why we ignore the symptoms. But how does stress affect us with heart disease and those numbers that we were just talking about?
Stress can never be good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, when you're stressed, what happens? Sometimes you break out in a sweat. Your heart is palpitating. You're sometimes you're short of breath. I mean, those are all
symptoms of a heart attack.
Symptoms of a heart attack. So none of that is good. If you have stress, you really need to address that stress. And what I'm sure you all know, what is a good stress reducer? Exercising.
Yes.
It really is. I mean, I'll find that I'm on the treadmill, and once I hit 35, 40 minutes, all of a sudden, it just kicks in. I'm like, okay, I feel good now, and then I can finish and do an hour or whatever I need to do. But it's amazing when they talk about those endorphins kicking in. That is true.
Yeah, and I think that let's take a little bit of a lesson from Melissa here, that, you know, it was your child that made you stop and change your life because you cared about the example that you were giving. If we'd start looking at ourselves like our own responsibilities and loving ourselves like we'd love our children, we'd probably take better care of ourselves, don't you think?
And we need to think about our children, because if we're not there,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, is our
Taking care of them.
We
We need to be healthy to take care of them.
to take care of them, and we forget
sometimes-
about that.
Yeah, we don't think that way.
We need to be a
sometimes.
little selfish here.
And at the end of the day, even though I did it for my daughter, I realized I needed it.
Yes.
And that was okay.
And for those that want to get involved with Go Red and the American Heart Association, is there a website that they can visit?
Oh,
or?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
GoRedForWomen.org. It's so simple. And I have to mention, too, and I'm wearing the Alex and Ani bracelets.
Yes.
You know how they always
Yes.
come up with, you know,
Charity
the
by
bracelet.
Design.
Yeah, Charity by
Yes.
Design. They came up, and I'm wearing the gold one, but there's a silver one as well, and it says Best Friends. There's 2 of them.
Yes.
And they sell them for $48 no matter which one you get, the silver or the gold. 20% goes to the American Heart Association.
That's fabulous.
Yes,
love Alex
we
and
love
Ani.
Alex and Ani.
Who doesn't?
Who
doesn't love jewelry?
Oh my gosh!
I have
Pat, you're a bangle bar.
I am
Bangle
a
bar.
I'm a bangle bar for Alex and Ani, both arms.
Well, we need to take a short break. Thank you so very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, ladies.
Loves having you.